Thank you so much for joining us for the monthly Ramp Up presented to you by Franchise Ramp. My name is Nick Hansen, creative producer here, and I'm super excited for the latest edition of this webinar series that includes a mix of in the trenches knowledge and high level strategy with one of our ACE account strategists, Ryan Levine, who's going to be talking about local creative today, along with a featured interview with a franchisee. Today, we have CycleBar franchisee Mike Nickel, who has locations in Longmont and Castle Pines in Colorado, and he may tell us about some other franchise news that he has coming up. And our awesome franchisee success manager, Cy Anderson, will conduct the interview. Thank you so much for attending today. The monthly Ramp Up's goal is to give you a coherent picture of what's happening at the intersection of marketing and franchising. We want this to be a tight-knit community for franchisees to share knowledge and gain insight. Our mission at Franchise Ramp is to help franchisees realize their entrepreneurial dreams. We were tired of working with digital marketing agencies who didn't understand franchising or sales in general. So we took matters in our own hands, became Facebook experts, and added other digital marketing experts to our team. We are the new standard in franchise digital marketing and help clients obtain more quantity and higher quality leads. Please come back and join us again. And now it's time for our tactical tool session with Franchise Ramp account strategist, Ryan Levine.
Thanks for that awesome introduction, Nick. Like you said, my name is Ryan Levine. I'm an account strategist here at Franchise Ramp. Today, we'll be diving into local creative and how we're going to input that into your overall campaign strategies. So, Nick, if you want to go to the next slide, you go to one more. Perfect. So the goals for today, we're going to be looking at local studio content versus corporate branded content. Then we're going to dive in, take a look at some examples of top performing local creatives that we're currently running here at Franchise Ramp. And then we'll go over some bullet points discussing why it's valuable to incorporate local creatives as part of your entire overall strategy. So on the next slide, we're going to be going over some statistics that we've pulled from our own creative reports, comparing local creative to corporate branded creative. So on the corporate creative side, we can see that cost per lead is around $13.70. We've spent about 92% of our ad spend budget and gained about 90% of leads through corporate branded creatives. The cost per 1,000 impressions, or CPM, is at around $16.64. And then click-through rate is at 0.51% with a lead form submission rate of 23.63%. Now, on the opposite side, if we look at local creatives, cost per lead is about $2 less at $11.38. We have only spent about 8% of the ad spend overall and only gained 10% of leads. But the cost per 1,000 impressions is less as well at $15.71. Click-through rate is almost double at 0.92% with a lead form submission rate of 14.98%. So you can see that local creatives, although we haven't spent as much money towards it, we get really good results out of it. So we basically want to take a look and say, all right, how can we incorporate local creatives into our everyday strategy? Because when it comes to corporate creatives, we have a lot more of it, and it gives us a better overall result because we use it much more frequently. So if we hop over to the next slide, I'll go into some bullet points of how we're going to do this and just explain a little bit further the results that we just went over. So as we just saw, corporate branded assets, they make up around 92% of the overall spend. That's because, like I said, it's consistent and it works. We have a high volume of that type of content, so we tend to use it more frequently. Now, branded content does an absolute fantastic job explaining what it's like being a part of the brand and just the overall brand experience. But it can't show what it's like to be a part of your individual studio. Now, although it's very similar, your instructors are different and the people that are in your market or the demos are also different. Now, getting a little bit more into detail about the statistics that I showed in the last slide. So in general, what we find is that local creatives have a higher click-through rate, but a lower lead form submission rate. Now, on the flip side, corporate creatives have a lower click-through rate and a higher lead form submission rate. Now, of course, stats will always change depending on the market, but overall, the reason why, so click-through rate, local creatives usually tend to get more clicks because they feel like they're more organic posts, something that your friend would have posted on Facebook or Instagram. So people are more curious. They click on that just to learn more. On the flip side, with lead form submission rate, which is where the corporate creatives come in, why that's higher is because corporate branded assets, basically, they tend to be more professional looking and they usually have an offer associated with that. So the people clicking on these ads tend to submit a lead form faster because they already know what's being associated with that offer and with that brand. Obviously, when it comes to local creative, the best person to refer to is your customer support rep. They're gonna be able to tell you what's working in your market or what's working in your brand creative wise. So going on to this next slide, basically we'll go over some just in-depth stats that we've pulled about media types, so images, boomerangs, videos. But the first thing I want to talk about is pre-sale. So pre-sale locations, when you add local content into that, it's an absolute cheat code. CPL goes super low, you get a ton of lead volume. It's just amazing, especially when it comes to storefront images, which we'll get into in a few slides from now. But looking at this little chart down here, what you can see, like I said, it's broken down into video, image, and boomerang. So we can see that with cost per lead, the best one to use is a boomerang at $10.12. Now, when it comes to click-through rate, we see that images have a 0.99%, so almost 1% click-through rate, which is spectacular. And the other thing that we look for, like I said, is lead form submission rate. When looking at it, lead form submission rate for boomerangs is the highest at 20.10%. So boomerangs hit 2 out of 3 of the categories that we look for when we're trying to look at a successful ad. So one thing that we would love to see more of is boomerangs from local studios. We don't get that a lot. It's usually just pretty basic images. It could be group shots. Like I said, I'll get into that a little bit further, but we would love to see more boomerangs when it comes to getting local creative from our clients. Nick, if you want to hop into the next one, I'll just go over examples of top performing local creatives that we're currently running here at Franchise Ramp. So the first category, like I said, it's these storefront images. It could be just a picture of the storefront. It could have, you know, your staff or even some of your students in front of the studio as well. But the reason why these are so good and the reason why we love local creative, like I said, the overall corporate branded assets, they could tell you and show you what Pure Barre is. But if you post something like this, people that are seeing, the people that you're targeting will say, hey, I've seen that building before, or, oh, that shopping center looks familiar. So it's about bringing that localness, that familiarity, the comfortability to it. So these are all 3 really great assets. Like I said, it could just be a picture of the studio, or it could be a picture of the studio with your staff in front of it. Nick, if you want to hop to the next one, we'll go into our next topic, which is local creatives studio. So it could be in studio or in lobby shots. These 3 top performing ones that we're running right now, like I said, pretty basic. It's just group shots. Everyone looks happy. They're having fun. It's good lighting. The cycle bar one I love. I think it's awesome. You got the people wearing the same colors as the branding. You got the neon. It looks awesome. So these are all examples if you're looking for really good local creatives type of stuff to do. And then finally, like I touched upon, boomerangs. So like I said, we don't have many top performing boomerangs that we get from the local side of things. So these are just some examples of fun, short, repeating videos that we could use when it comes to local creative. So they're super fun. It shows the brand. And like I said, it's a little more localized. You could see who the instructor is, because when someone goes into a class for the first time, everyone kind of wants to see a familiar face. So if you see that online first, you're like, oh, that person's familiar. Okay, I feel comfortable here. So it's all about that comfortability. And then hopping into one of our last slides, it's going to be incorporating your local creative into the overall advertising strategy. So just kind of taking everything I just spoke about, putting it into a few bullet points. So combining corporate branded content with content from your individual studio helps just overall with performance, and it also helps provide consistent results. And then the thing that I keep hammering in, adding local creative just incorporates that trust factor, the familiarity, and that community feeling that you get when it comes to these individual brands. So like I said, a Pure Barre that's in Idaho could be completely different than a Pure Barre in New York. So you want to make sure that the people that are seeing your ads are getting the sense of Pure Barre nationally, but also in your actual market as well. And then finally, potential leads, like I said, they want to know what it's like being in your studio, not just a studio. So I'm just kind of repeating myself, but it's super important because your studio could be a little bit different. If you have a sign in your lobby that says Pure Barre Oklahoma, and it's going to people in Oklahoma, and the copy is shouting out, hey, Oklahoma locals, it feels more comfortable with a person. So that's all super important. And just to wrap everything up on our last slide here, it's how you can start incorporating more local today, basically. So Nick, our wonderful host here, he made a fantastic about 5-minute video on how to shoot amazing local creative. So in this, you could find how to shoot boomerangs, which is kind of what I spoke about. We don't get too many of those. We'd love to see more. So he gives a great demo on how to shoot boomerangs, how to upload it, and then let us use it. So you could find this video in our resource center that's for our customers, or you can reach out to us, your customer support reps, and we are more than happy to provide it for you. But that's basically it. That's how we're going to be using local creative to drive more leads and incorporating it with the overall campaign strategy. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome, Ryan. That was so good and so informative. And yes, send us your boomerangs, please. And let us know if you need any help in capturing them. And please also message us in the chat or in the Q&A function here if you have any questions about Ryan's presentation. And now I would like to introduce our amazing franchisee success manager, Cy Anderson.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Nick. And thank you, Mike, for taking time out of your day today to join us and help bring the franchisee community in together. Just to kind of kick us off, get us started, if you wouldn't mind taking some time to share everyone a little bit more about yourself, kind of pre-CycleBar.
Oh, Cy, you know me well. I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. All the way back to when I was 13, I had a lawn mowing business. I conned my friends into working for me. I guess you could say it's the mud. From there, it snowballed. I was on the founding team of 2 technology startups. One that created voice over IP calling, which is the basis of the technology we're using today. And another one that created the application firewall. So, that has just been something that I've done consistently. From there, I spread my wings a little bit. I did a roll up in the marketing communications industry where we were trying to take point of presence marketing, things like bounce backs, table cards, all of that, and integrate it into marketing campaigns. And then I became a dad and I segued into Fortune 500 life to raise my daughter. And I tried to learn this work-life balance thing. Still not sure what that is exactly, but I'm working.
I think there is probably more than a few of us that can relate to at least the last part there. So you ventured into something that really did have some parallels into like your day job as a serial entrepreneur, as you coined it, and a startup founder, but really does kind of branch off and take you off into a different direction. What was it exactly? Like, can you pinpoint what it was that inspired you to become a franchise owner, or even more specifically, a CycleBar franchisee?
You know what? Absolutely. And I'll be very candid about it. The global pandemic, the COVID, it scared me. It rattled my cage, and it made me realize that all of my eggs were in the corporate basket, right? And when the world went into lockdown, I felt it in my soul. All of that uncertainty, all of that dread, the sensation that there was this razor sharp pendulum swinging over your head, to quote Edgar Allan Poe. So I had two choices. I could sit there with those feelings, wallow, watch streaming services, Bird Box, or whatever the heck it was at the time, until I was completely emotionally numb, or I could diversify and lead my way through this thing, create some new income streams. And that led to the research. That led to the contemplation of, well, God, do I want to do another startup? And almost immediately it was, man, I don't want to give up my career. I'm doing really well. I do meaningful work. I'm blessed that I've built this fantastic team that helps people navigate their digital transformations. Real estate wasn't the right answer for me. You know, the Federal Reserve doubled the amount of money, US dollars in the economy within a couple of months. So real estate went crazy. There was no sense of value. Heck, that's going to take years to sort out. So then I started thinking about franchising. It's like, okay, it's a business in a box. It comes with procedures. It comes with standards. It comes with branding tools. And thanks to the Federal Trade Commission, I can evaluate them. I can compare them. They become somewhat fungible. But there was a couple of things that I knew going into that. The food industry was a non-starter for me. You know, God bless them, but the people that do franchise food, the whole idea of being locked into one supplier, being as good as whatever you're assembling and selling, it just didn't fit my values. I couldn't find a scratch-made concept whose economics made sense. The home improvement franchises, you know, you're really buying a job there and you have trouble scaling. And it was tough. And then, you know, I don't know who does Expo's internet marketing, but I found Expo. More specifically, I found Christy and Lance at Exponential. And they explained to me how Expo builds brands, how it's different, how you set that flywheel for the operating model. And then it was, okay, this suits my strengths. This aligns to my values. This is what I'm good at. Which brand? And living in Colorado, which is apparently the fitness capital of the universe, it became picking and choosing a little bit. And the one that spoke to me in my initial market of Boulder County was CycleBar. Rhythm-based cycling just made a lot of sense in this market. The irony of which being that, you know, I'm not a cyclist. I have a broken tailbone, so sitting in the saddle is literally painful for me. I do powerlifting, Pilates, rucking, those sorts of things. Unfortunately, Club Pilates is sold out in this market. But then, you know, I took a long, hard look at CycleBar. I went to a class, and that's something I recommend for anyone that is looking at one of the Expo brands, is go experience it. And I was hooked. It is literally a dance party on a bike, and the music, the community, the endorphins, you can't beat that. You know, in franchise fitness, we're selling experiences, and CycleBar is something that keeps people coming back.
Yeah, I actually totally relate with you on that one, Mike. I am not a cyclist either, but I have taken a CycleBar class. So for those of you who may have not yet, it definitely is more than just a workout. It's a whole experience. So I can attest to that. So I think for most first-time franchisees, they'll do what they can, you know, and they kind of start off to prime themselves and prep themselves for the challenges that might be down their path. But, you know, like life so often does, kind of throws wrenches in plans, and then you'll encounter some unexpected obstacles. Can you share with us a little bit more about some of these challenges that you may have found yourself up against, and then also what you did to kind of overcome them?
Absolutely, Zach. You know, really, there's two main paths that a person can take getting into franchise fitness. And for better or for worse, I've lived them both. You can take over new territories, building a location from scratch. If you do that, you're in for a true test of your resiliency, especially in the 2020s. everything's going to take longer than you expected. Commercial lease negotiations can drag on for months. That's if you find space available. The supply chain for business equipment's literally in shambles. Prior to this whole experience, I didn't understand what was made in the Chengdu province versus the Shenzhen province in China. I do now. Before that, I didn't know. In building our initial location, I've experienced all of that stuff, plus natural disasters. We had the Marshall Fire that consumed a good chunk of Boulder County. We had an asbestos issue.
Yes.
We had blizzards. You name it, it's happened around here. But fundamentally, none of it matters. You just have to keep moving forward. All you have to do is get up one more time than you fall, pivot around one more issue, and eventually you're going to get where you're going. For those that are looking at buying an existing studio, you have a completely different set of challenges. The first thing you have to do is you have to get very real. Recognize there's a reason, probably spoken, maybe even subconscious, that the previous owner is selling. It means that you need to go in there and if you ever saw the show House MD, you have to become that diagnostician. Inspect the business thoroughly to see what's working, see what needs improved. The cycle bar that I bought, the problem, it was pretty obvious. It had no sales funnel. They just had the belief that if we deliver the experience, the sales will take care of themselves. Very high-minded goals. I really do appreciate that resolve, but you have to have a sales funnel. You have to have marketing. You have to have grassroots. Lead flow is what drives franchise fitness. And honestly, working with Franchise Ramp, I got to give you guys credit, especially you, Cy. We were able to hit the ground running. The very first month, we stabilized member headcount, which had been atrophying at 10 to 15% a month, which meant something was off with the experience. And now, finally, we've got a new GM in place. We're getting momentum. We're coming out of the business. We're starting to grow. And, it's incredible. You turn on that funnel. You put fresh retail into the store. You enliven up the experience. CycleBar uses something that's called a scent bridge, which creates the quote unquote smell of CycleBar in a good way. And people notice the energy comes back. The instructors are signing up for extra shifts because they want to be engaged. And you get that momentum coupled with a couple of timely promotions and things start moving again. It really is pretty incredible.
That's incredible. And I'm happy to have been on this journey with you so far. So just to recap quickly, you ventured into the franchisee space with the pre-sale studio. Then before it even opened, you acquired an open existing studio as a transfer owner. Is there anything that you learned so far that, or maybe even were surprised about to come upon running an open studio that you think you can now apply with your pre-sale that will be opening up shortly?
Correct. The biggest learning is there's no shortcuts in making a unit successful. You have to have the discipline, whether you start at the beginning, you take on a studio that's already running. It is a relentless dedication to execution. The Dirt Start studio, I compare it to running a marathon before the thing's even open, and then you're going to keep running. And the length of the journey is just different there. Whereas the existing studio, you plunk yourself into that operating tempo. But really, it was the pre-sale studio that gave me the insights to find the suboptimal business processes and reinvigorate that experience in the open studio versus transferring the other way around.
Very true. So now that you've shared with some of the challenges that you were faced with, maybe have already overcome some of them that you might actually find yourself still in right now, what do you think are some of the takeaways, the biggest takeaways you could share with other franchisees that might find themselves in a similar situation? If you were sitting down having a beer with Mike circa 2020, what kind of insight would you share with him?
You know, it's funny you bring this up. I just had a discussion the other day with a brand new franchisee that's big in the eyes, all doughy about the whole thing. And the first thing I said was trust the process. I know there's some hesitancy to take what the franchisor says as gospel, but seriously, they're your partner in this. And fundamentally, your interests are aligned. They want you to make money.
Mhm.
Heck, the more money you make, the more money they make. And it's pretty simple that way. Yes, there's noise, but if you picked a good franchise partner, their heart is 100% in the right place. You just have to recognize that that team is supporting umpteen cajillion studios, and you'll get your turn, but it may not be an instant answer. The second one, maybe this should be the first, is quit looking at marketing as an expense. It is the flywheel that generates your leads, and your leads are what generate your sales. Within reason, and Cy, you've heard me evangelize on this. I don't give a hoot about my CPL or my CTR, any of that stuff. What ultimately matters to me is my cost per customer acquisition and what is the lifetime revenue that I can expect per member. Now, I'm not a member of the franchisor, none of these numbers are gospel, but just as an example, I know that the typical CycleBar member stays on for 35 months, correcting for COVID, of course. And she's probably an EFT 8, which means 8 times a month, or an unlimited member. So I'm going to simplify the math here. Let's say that membership's worth $100 a month after franchise fees and all that junk. So that's $3,500 right there. She'll probably buy at least 3 retail items a year. So heck, what's that? 9 items at an average price of $50. So that's another $450. So that means that one member, she's worth $3,950 in revenue. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd be giggling all the way to the bank if it even cost me $500 to convert her. And if my team treats her like gold, which they better, she may stay even longer than that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I agree with you completely. I really appreciate your perspective on that. I think that the shift in focus from CPL to cost of customer acquisition, or CPA, as being like the end all be all metric that we all kind of pivot off of is super valuable. I appreciate the shift. I appreciate your perspective. I know that it's at the heart of a lot of conversations here at Franchise Ramp, just how important that shift is. And I just appreciate you bringing that up. All right, so now that we've learned more about past Mike, present Mike, do you care to share a little bit more with our eager listeners on what's in store for future Mike?
Oh God, future Mike has no chill. I am absolutely blessed that I've gotten this outstanding team in place. My general managers, all of my instructors, Franchise Ramp, I consider you part of the team, my partners at Expo. It all works together, and it allows us to have a solid foundation. And we want to amplify the impact that we're making. We want to make a dent in the universe of helping people become their best selves. I mean, that's my purpose in life, is to help others become their best selves. So, there's been rumblings, but I'm pleased to announce that we're very fortunate. We've been granted the opportunity to expand into a second exponential brand, and we're part of the first cohort of franchisees to bring Body Fit training, or BFT as it's known, to North America. This product's right in my wheelhouse as a power lifter. It has a ton of science behind it, and it's absolutely kicked butt in Australia and New Zealand. This thing came from the Australian national rugby coach. It's rock solid, and not to get into it too much, but BFT is personal for me. Let me explain. A couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that attacks my joints and tendons. Thankfully, it's not a directly life-threatening sort of thing, but man, it can wreck one's quality of life, and it's not fun at all. The the well-meaning providers, the doctors, they prescribe medications that are the standard of care. And, God, it was a terrible day. She said, we're prepared to file disability paperwork or any of that sort of stuff. Well, the side effect profile of the meds is damn near as bad as the disease, pardon my language. But I'm too stubborn to go out. I'm not going to do disability. So I decided to make some lifestyle changes. I moved to essentially a whole foods diet where I don't eat any processed food. I've eliminated commercial cereal grains. It's the proteins that are in bread and give it that wonderful mouthfeel that, God, I'm craving right now. They make my tendons burn like someone takes a blowtorch to my elbows. The other thing that I did, though, was I made regular, intense weight-bearing exercise a must. Tendons are one of the slowest parts of your body to turn over at the cellular level. I think it's 180 to 190 days, something like that. That's why when you get tendonitis, it feels like it takes forever to heal, because it literally does. So by putting regular strain on them, they get built back, more stronger, they're healthier, they have greater density. And then what's once was vulnerable is now radically reinforced. My wife's and my investment in BFT allows me to have that opportunity to help others get into an absolutely kick-butt gym and get world-class coaching to overcome their own health issues, their own travails, or even more importantly, prevent them and skip that whole thing because it's garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so excited for you to add this additional concept, kind of add it to your portfolio. I know it's something that you've been working on for quite some time now, and I know I'm not the only one here that can feel your passion with BFT. So really excited for what's in store for you. Mike, thank you so much again for taking time out of your clearly very busy schedule. You got a lot of stuff on your plate, a lot of working pieces right now, just to kind of share your experience with the franchisee community and help bring that network in together. You and I have been working together for almost a year now, and I've always been super impressed with your perspective and business acumen, really since day one. I think we can all agree that the concern you had during the pandemic with putting all of your eggs in one basket is really no longer the case. Maybe even you might find some time to sit down and enjoy some of those streaming services now if you have some free time. I think it was Bird Box.
Do you think I have the chill for that?
Maybe. Thanks again, Mike. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you, Cy and Mike. That was absolutely unbelievable. So much good information in there. And I had to look up what rucking is. And I Googled that during the call. A heavy or even a light backpack and walking and kind of putting one foot in front of the other, which seems like a great analogy for your franchise journey. So thank you. And we do have a Q&A session. I'm not seeing anything in the chat or in the Q&A function, but please message us here as soon as possible if you do have a question. But also know that we will be emailing the recording of this out to everybody. And if any questions come up after the fact, please reach out to us. Oh, we've got one. Okay, it says the chat is disabled. Okay, well, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section then. Jill, do you have a question? We'll just give it a second here.
Hi, Jill.
Okay, no question, but we appreciate you letting us know that the chat was off. Okay, well, I don't think we're going to have any questions today, but please reach out via email if you have any that come up. And thank you everybody so much for joining us today. We already can't wait to see you next time, and we look forward to working with you to achieve your entrepreneurial dreams. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.